Do you ever think about achieving something incredible in life, but you lack the motivation to do the work required to get there? Well, the bad news is, unfortunately, this lack of motivation is what's going to keep you stuck for many years to come. But the good news is this can be fixed. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing these 6 motivation hacks I used to go from complete zero and unmotivated all the way up to making my first $100,000 online with my online business. And best of all, I still use these same motivation hacks right now, making over $50,000 a month. And just a fair warning here, some of these are pretty brutal, so prepare yourself. But first, before we get into everything, we need to bust a big myth. Now, successful people, myself included, are not motivated all of the time. We don't wake up in the morning, leap out of bed and say, I'm going to be productive all day long, every single day of the week, every single day of the year. Because motivation is fleeting. It is temporary. You have it and then you don't, based on internal and external factors. And based on those internal and external factors, your motivation can vary depending on the time of the day of the week of the month of the year, and so on. So the key thing here is don't feel bad if you're not motivated all of the time. Because after all, we're human, we're not robots, we're not productivity machines. We have emotions which will affect our motivation on a daily basis. Instead, the secret is to ride the wave of the motivation while you have it, making the most of that, being as productive as you possibly can while you're motivated, so you can make massive progress in a short period of time before the motivation disappears. Well, with that said, how do we generate these waves of motivation so we can take advantage of them, especially if you haven't felt motivated in a long time? Well, my coaching clients and I have discovered 6 motivation triggers to get yourself out of that slump and become motivated again immediately. Here they are. The first hack is to focus on the outcome rather than the work involved to get there. Now, this works super well because whenever we focus on doing something, we often overwhelm ourselves with all of the individual steps required to get there. We focus on the work required to get to the outcome and not the outcome itself and what it will do for us, which leads to a lack of motivation. For example, if you think about creating an online course so you can generate passive income from that course, you may start with, oh, I need to create an online course idea, I need to think about the curriculum, what I would put into that course, I need to think about the marketing, everything else, and all of that suddenly becomes very overwhelming to you, especially if you don't know what to do, which turns into procrastination, which turns into a lack of motivation. So instead, focus on the outcome and what that looks like in your everyday life. For example, you may be able to go on more vacations because of the passive income you've earned, or maybe you can afford the luxury car you want to buy, or maybe you're able to see family in a different state or a different country more often, for example, right? All of these things in your life can happen when you achieve that outcome, and the way to get to that outcome is to do the work. So focus more on the outcome rather than the work. Second, we have a very brutal method, if I'm honest. It's kind of mean to yourself, but so motivating, and that is to live your dream life or your dream outcome temporarily. Because often when we have these big dreams and these big goals for ourselves in our heads, there's a small part of us, even if you don't realize it, that doesn't believe it's possible. And by doing these things yourself in real life, instead of in our heads, it makes you realize, wow, this is actually possible. Afterwards, you not only believe that it's fully possible for yourself because you've just done it, but also it's super painful to not be there anymore. So you want to get back there as soon as possible, which gives you that motivation to do so. Now, there are a few ways you can do this, but for me personally, when I was living in Mexico City, I really wanted to live in San Diego. So every opportunity I could, I would take a vacation to San Diego. So then when I went home, it would be so painful to me to be home and not be in San Diego that I would work my behind off to get there. And when I was here on vacation, I would take some time out to go to some open houses. I would go around these incredible $2 million, $3 million, $5 million plus houses and just think, this is incredible, and all of these people visiting these properties and interested in them, they can afford it. Why can't I? And I did a similar thing back when I was living in England around 7 years ago now. It was always my dream to own a Lamborghini, but I couldn't afford it back then. So I hired one for the week, and afterwards, when I had to see that baby go bye-bye, I was working my ass off to be able to afford one. And guess what? I got one. I bought a Lamborghini Huracan, and it was incredible. But the fact that I hired one for the week made me so motivated motivated to have that as my long-term car. So when you do this and you go back to your everyday life and you don't have the things you've just experienced, that is so painful and honestly quite brutal. And you think, why aren't I there? How am I so far away from this goal? And it motivates you to do something about it. Third, this is something I like to do every single year, and it's to have a visual representation of your dream life. And yes, some people would say this is more of a manifestation tip rather than a motivation tip. But for me personally, there's nothing more motivating than seeing my goals every single day, either on a vision board in my office where I can see that all day long every day, and or in a folder on your desktop filled with images representing your dream outcome. Now, if this is a little cheesy for you, then you can also just change your phone's background to something which represents your outcome, but either way, have your goals at the forefront of your mind every single day of your life. Fourth, a big reason why most people lack motivation is because they focus too much on the money and not enough on their life's purpose and helping people and what makes them happy. Because when I was motivated by money, not only is that a terrible quality to have, but also it would vary massively depending on the type of day I had had, the type of week I'd had, and the type of month and how much money I'd earned. So if I'd had a bad month, that would have a knock-on effect on my motivation for the next few weeks as well. And guess what? That would then affect my income, which is a downward spiral. Instead, when you focus on what makes you happy, your life's purpose, and preferably helping people, that is infinitely more motivating than money ever could be. Fifth, you need to celebrate your small wins. Because even though you may have this incredible life-changing end goal, it does not make you a failure if you haven't achieved it yet. You are still a winner because you have these small wins on the way to your end goal. For example, let's say your first big goal is to make $100,000 with an online venture. You should not wait until you make $100,000 before celebrating your progress. That is so demotivating because it can take a while to get there, right? Instead, you should be celebrating all of the small wins on the way to that goal, all of the stepping stones, if you will. So for example, celebrate choosing your niche, or maybe creating your online course, or getting the course online, or maybe getting your first customer, whatever it may be. All of those stepping stones to that end goal should be celebrated. For example, when I've worked hard during the day, and I know for a fact I've actually worked hard instead of just saying that to get the reward, I will reward myself with a couple of squares of chocolate. I love the dairy milk chocolate, it's amazing, it's from the UK, but I reward myself with that. And for the bigger wins, let's say I just completed a brand new course, or I've had a record month or something like that, I'll book a vacation for myself and my family. But it's all about progress over perfection and rewarding yourself for that progress. Sixth, surround yourself with people who are way more successful than you. When you hang out with people doing better than you, they're always talking about these incredible achievements like it's normal. Like they've just gone to some incredible vacation for a month, or maybe they've just bought an incredible new car worth more than your house or something like that. It becomes normal behavior because you hear about it so consistently, and that means it becomes normal to you. And suddenly you're thinking, how can I do that? Rather than, oh, they're doing that. Another great benefit of this is you can actually ask them what they're doing to achieve those great things, so their success rubs off on you. Now you may be thinking, James, I don't know anybody who is successful. How do I find these people? Well, a good place is the local networking events in your local community. There's a ton of successful people in those, and of course you can always pay a mentor to work with them inside a coaching program just like Elevate. Wink, wink. Now, of course, these aren't the only things that can give you motivation. So I want to hear from you. What are the things that give you motivation? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.